Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. Thanks for joining this session, where we're going to talk about Academyati's journey, which is taking us beyond the language of school. I am Abdurrahman Dadash, and I'm the expansion designer in Academyati. The objective of this session is, the aim of this session basically is to share what we learned along the journey of Academyati as the first progressive school in Qatar, which is, in short, as follows. The fact that it is really important to locally root design of interventions in education. Also to truly think outside the box, meaning thinking from first principles, going to the vanilla phase as the software developers like to use. Also starting with the why, which is the purpose of any intervention, and finally to co-create with the learners. So this is the basically the conclusion up front. So we'll dive deeper. The outline is as follows. We'll start with the context of this initiative in Qatar. We'll also talk briefly about its journey and the need for the expansion phase that we're undertaking next year, inshallah. I'll also talk about the research that we've done, the approach, and the design, and we'll conclude at the end. So a bit of a story about myself. When I was the age of Saad, who's in the picture, I really wanted to be a car designer, and I used to design cars when I was in school, and I had portfolios and stuff. But then reaching high school and moving on to university, I had to go to an engineering college because people told me that you wouldn't get a job as a car designer, and I guess that's life. So I ended up being a geologist. I worked in the petroleum industry. I loved geology, but I didn't enjoy the petroleum industry. So a few years later, I became a teacher, and I joined the teaching profession with Teach for Qatar. And one day when I was in class, and I was looking at students, and one child was doodling, and drawing was not focused on the task, as teachers would say. And I came closer, and I found that he was drawing cars, drawings like this. These are actually his drawings. So in the beginning, he was ashamed, and he was hiding it, and he tried to ignore it. And I said, no, this is actually good. Let me see. Your drawings are really beautiful. And I asked him to show me more, and he brought more sketches and pictures. And over the years, I was encouraging him to continue his passion for drawing cars, and it improved immensely over the years. And I kept in touch with him. He kept sending me pictures through email, and he really got to a point of incredible skill. Like you can't really think that this is a drawing, and even this one. Recently, though, he reached out to me. His name is Amir, and I was really saddened when I knew that he went to college, and he, instead of following his passion, he ended up doing civil engineering. When I asked why, he said, well, people told me that I wouldn't get a job following my passion. So I guess that's life again, right? Now I'm at a point where I have this little guy who's my son, and he loves cars too. I have nothing to do with it. He just happened to be. I don't know where did he get it from, but he loves cars and he draws cars, and he's been drawing cars since he was really, really young. Cars with triangular wheels, cars with square wheels, and So I think at this point, being a good father, I have to stop him from doing this, or at least encourage him to do it as a hobby, and make sure that he gets really good grades in school, and ensures that he gets a position in a really good university to to start a career that is good for him, because that's what life is all about. Or is it? I think the question here is, is this really what life is all about? Is this the job of school? I mean, even if this is really what life is about, is the job of school to reproduce life as we know it? I love a quote by Aaron Eden from Brightworks when he says, if women are paid 25% less than men, does that mean that we should give them 25% less grades at school to prepare them for the future? So I guess what I'm trying to get to here is, what is the purpose of school? Is it to reproduce reality as we know it, or is it to recreate it in a way that is closer to what we aspire and what is ideal? Even though numbers and statistics tell us that the world is changing at an ever faster rate, with AI, climate change, geopolitics, shifting economic powers, and recently the pandemic. God knows what more is there for us. To borrow Andreas Schleicher's words, he says the future will continue to surprise us, and that's a reality. The future of work, according to Schleicher, is going to shift from routine tasks with low use of ICT to more non-routine tasks with high use of ICT. Also, there is a gap between what education is producing and what the market is in need for. So there is this social pain at this phase where education is not really responding to demand in the market. That's why we have a lot of graduates that cannot find jobs, and that's why there are lots of companies that are looking for employees and can't find the right ones. Also, to borrow Heather McGowan's comparison between the old economic paradigm and today's economic reality is, where it was very distinct three phases of, getting your education, starting a job, climbing the ladder, and then retiring at a certain age. And now we're shifting to, learning becoming a lifelong thing. We have to keep going back to learning instead of climbing a very clear and well established ladder. We have engagements instead, and those engagements could be jobs, they could be startups, they could be initiatives, they could be various things. And we remain engaged even after retirement. Also, the old notions, the traditional interventions in education are not helping. For example, having longer school hours are not helping with productivity. Matter of fact, it's inversely correlated to productivity, as we can see in this graph, also borrowed from OECD, where countries like the UAE here having the longest hours of in-school plus out-of-school learning, meaning homeworks and things like that, with very low productivity. Inversely, we see Finland and Germany having very short hours with more productivity. So the state of Qatar understands this and understands the necessity of diversifying its economy. That's why it adopts a national vision for 2030, where it's focused mainly on becoming a knowledge economy. So the creation of Academyati is partly in line with these ambitions, of course, alongside impacting main public education through shedding examples of how successful a school that is progressive can be. So our journey started from being an idea to reality, and to actually leading in this trend in the Middle East. So Academyati is one of the leading initiatives by Qatar Foundation, and it was established in 2019. But the thinking started a few years back with Her Excellency Sheikh Hind bint Hamad, the CEO of Qatar Foundation, when she drafted this idea for the future, the school of the future. And the past few years, Academyati managed to blend ideas from Montessori, Reggio Emilia, the self-led learning movement, into a powerful model, that was really working for early childhood learning, one that is unique, as I said, in both Qatar and the Middle East. Key elements of this program include working experimentally, flat leadership as a main model for how business is carried out, open door policy for parents to join because they're seen as partners. Quests are the main vehicle for learning, bilingualism as well. So while Academyati is still in its early stages, its success has emphasized a need for an alternative option for teens as well. So our challenge now is how might we design a learning space for the youth that will enable a thriving learning community for teens. Our approach was that we base our design in design principles that guide how we work. Also, we design based on our learning beliefs. Learners, which are teens in this case, are at the center of our work, and our goals capture our purpose. The design principles that guide how we work include rooting our design in Islamic and Qatari context, working experimentally, building from first principles, as I said earlier, starting small and thinking long-term. Our purpose is how might we create a place that cultivates awe, a place that cultivates God consciousness, that inspires people to discover meaningful work that is beyond self, a place that enables a thriving community where opportunities for collaboration and for contribution might arise. I'm really glad that some of the speakers in this platform are starting to touch upon the spiritual dimension of progressive education, which is really key beyond the other dimensions, including socio-emotional learning, physical dimension, cognitive abilities, and so on and so forth, because it's really key in terms of asking or answering rather the question of the why we do what we do, why we learn, like what is the purpose of learning, going beyond the idea of just delivering work to succeed or to pass or to land a job. Basically, the notion of lifelong learning is also embedded within this, like why we learn. It's because it's part of being a human. It's part of being alive. The process that we followed was looking inward and then looking outwards, then coming up with a design and experimenting with this design. Looking inward means talking to parents, teens, and other stakeholders. Looking outwards means seeking inspiration from organizations and communities in the world, and then coming up with a design and experimenting, as I said. So looking inwards, our teens want an inclusive and diverse community. They want active, not passive learning. They want immersive experiences, things that connect them to the real world. Also, they want support in discovering and cultivating their interests. Freedom does not mean the absence of structure, but they want support in finding new interests and going deeper. Parents want loving and caring community for their children. They want agency and self-direction to be fostered. They want curiosity and passions and interests to be nurtured. They want identity and sense of self and spiritual grounding, as I touched on earlier. They also want exposure to real life experiences and readiness to real life. The collaborators, which are our teachers, they, in addition to what the parents said, they also wanted powerful learning experiences. They wanted the local identity to be fostered, and they also emphasized bilingualism. Looking outwardly, we took inspiration not only from leading schools, but also incubators, accelerators, creative communities, world-class companies and startups, research groups and communities, basically platforms or infrastructures for human development, not only schools. And then we also included historical perspectives, including polymathic cultures, like the culture of this region, which is deeply characterized by polymaths people who specialized in so many different fields of knowledge, and they were really successful in doing that. Also guilds as communities of practice and professional growth. Historical rise of colleges and universities and how organic that process was back in the 12th and 13th century Europe. Also human and societal development. And then we mapped everything into two dimensions of structure and openness versus prescriptive and interest-driven. So this is how it looks like. So at the extremes, if we have a prescriptive and open environment, picture a Lego kit, which is there's only one way of getting to what you want to get, but there is many things that you can achieve. At the other quadrant, the lower left quadrant, if it is interest-driven and open, then you can control the how to work, but then and also what to work on. Picture a sandbox where you can do anything you want and in any way you want. Right quadrant, if it is structured, but it is interest-driven, picture a playground where you can decide what structure to play on, but there is only one way of playing on that thing. And the last quadrant, when it is structured and prescriptive, picture a maze where there is only one correct end and there is one way to reaching that end. And then we plotted all of our inspiration to that, and that gave us an idea on where we want to locate ourselves. So key examples here include the Montessori model is there, the IB schools are there, Sudbury, for example, is at this corner. Reggio Emilia is not very far. So this is just a reference for us to decide on how we want to locate ourselves. What is the place that we want to be in, and where do we want to take inspiration from? If you want more on this, please reach out to me by the end of this session. I can share more information on this. The design was basically we diverged on different models. We prototyped and then we converged on one design to test this year. Before we talk about the design, the research shows that we have 4 types of teens. We have focused makers, and we have early explorers, we have dabblers, and we have floaters. And for us to serve all of these different types of teens, they struggle with barriers to starting, or barriers to exploration, or barriers to getting deeper into things. So to serve all of them, we decided to adopt a framework, which is basically having lower floors, meaning ease of accessibility, ease of starting projects, wide walls, meaning a wide variety of things they can explore, and high ceilings, meaning the ability or the opportunity for them to dive deeper into what interests them. Then we plotted all the different models that we came up with, and we finally converged on a model that we call immersive and self-led learning hub. So what this means, it's basically a blend of the self-directed and immersive learning models with the aspiration of becoming a lifelong learning hub in the long term. So learners participate in immersions, which are facilitated activities, workshops or extended projects, or direct their own learning in teams or individual quests. There are also community rituals that support the work, including planning meetings, co-working, and learning festivals. So the learning festivals are at the end of learning cycles. And the learning cycles basically are an idea to challenge the notion that learning is bound to a specific time or place. So they can learn at school or outside of school, and they can also learn during school days or in weekends and school breaks as well. So if you have a continuous time, and documentation of their learning, regardless of whether they are in a school break or at school, that helps in breaking that notion that learning only happens in school or during school days. Also, All of these learning cycles, they end with learning festivals, which are events that bring the community together, where learners can share and reflect and celebrate successes. It does not necessarily mean that projects should end, but it acts as a milestone. It acts as a deadline to encourage completion of work. So in this snapshot, we can see different elements of this learning cycle. So we have emergence, which span the whole of the learning cycle. We have an exploration phase in the beginning. We have goal setting phase. And then we have a creation phase, and it's culminated with a learning festival at the end. Learners can engage in workshops that are facilitated. So the blue color highlights facilitated engagements, or they can engage in quests, which can be individual or team quests. As I said earlier, the projects do not necessarily end with learning festivals. They can extend into the following learning cycle. With this said, how would week would look like? Would look like something like what you see. So the blue blocks again are cohort things that happen where everybody joins. They are facilitated engagements. The yellow and orange are self-led engagements. The yellow is individual, and the orange is team. And finally, the green is things that are related to school culture or rituals, including a meeting with a mentor that happens weekly, and demos at the end of the week for people to share what they learn. You can notice here that the blocks extend over school hours or before, and they can also extend to weekends. So if you have a family trip in the weekend, that also counts as learning. If it goes into your portfolio, which we call the creative garden, that's also part of your learning. If you brought samples from that trip, if you took a few pictures, if you met new people, that's learning too. So the creative garden is based on the idea of digital gardens, which are portfolios of finished work, but not only finished work, also work in progress. So it includes ideas that are raw, that are not fully explored or navigated. Also, it includes reflections and comments by visitors, by mentors, and it's basically a portfolio that the learners take forward with them over the years. So in conclusion, what we learned through this journey is that it is really important to locally root the design. The copy-paste approach is really problematic. Also, to truly think outside the box, meaning really question what does it is that element of the learning model, is it really necessary? Is it really necessary to have grades, for example, and group children in similar age groups? Is it really necessary to teach them math and science separately from history, for example? And also starting with the why, because it captures the purpose and the spiritual dimension of what education is all about. And finally, always have an ear for our learners and co-create with them and give them the opportunity to voice what they want to see in their school. And I shall end with this. Thank you so much for listening. And if you have any comments, please, I'm willing to answer them. Thank you for the comments. I really appreciate your words. There is a question about whether this is the only one I couldn't understand. Um, yes, please, if you can elaborate on that. Is this the only reason, Abdullah Al-Hamadi? Thank you all. Well, if there is no question, I'll probably tell whoever is interested one more story. It's very short. I was talking to someone from Nigeria, from Teach for Nigeria, a fellow of Teach for Nigeria. Her name is Winifred, a very young lady. She was very passionate, and she was talking to me about starting an after-school club in her school that she calls after-school kiddies club. Ask. And I asked her, what do you do in that club? And she said, well, we teach them self-awareness. We teach them growth mindset, how to find their purpose, strength, and people skills, communication skills, collaboration, financial literacy, self-defense, because apparently it's really important there, creative thinking and critical thinking, useful habits, such as meditation. And so this is just to link to the talk that was before me. It seems that schools are really not delivering on what people need. If all of these skills are needed and they are given in a club, in an after school club, I think that should be school, and the academic part should be part of this. I shall end with that. Thank you very much for your attention, and hope to see you soon. Bye bye.